my group chats of my followers had changed their names to RIP this person, and basically it was that this girl had passed away from a brain tumor. Immediately, my heart was like broken, and she's a huge supporter, and also she's just a sweet child. And as a person, that's a sad thing to hear. But then, as I started asking the group chats details about it, I was saying, how did you guys find out so quickly? I just talked to her like yesterday. And they were like, her mom DM'd us from her account. And that to me felt weird, because I was like, well, first of all, did her mom know her password? Second of all, if this woman's daughter just passed away, is the first thing she's gonna do is get on Twitter and talk to a bunch of people she doesn't know? Something about this doesn't feel right to me. So then I opened up my DMs, and I got a DM from her later that day from her mother, who was saying, this is such and such's mother. As you may have heard, such and such passed away from brain tumor, and we're really sad, we're really heartbroken, but we just wanted to let you know that she talked about you a lot, and she really cared about you, and you made a big difference in her life. And at this moment, I'm like, wow, this is devastating. But then the more I read it, the more I'm like, there's a lot of typos in here. This seems like a weird thing that a mother wouldn't say, because it ended with like, even in her final days, all she could talk about is how badly she wanted you to notice her. And now it's turning into like a guilt trip of, oh, she was dying and I didn't pay attention to her. I didn't answer her DMs enough. I didn't like her tweets enough. And I just found it very odd that a mother would DM a YouTuber the day after her daughter passes away and say, all she wanted was to be noticed by you. And so through not very much deductive reasoning, I find out that this is this girl, and she's pretending to be dead so that I will finally notice her, even though we had plenty of conversations in the past. And it was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. She's old enough to know better. It was deceitful. She had so many people upset about her, crying about it. Group chats literally flooded with people saying how upset they were. And all of this for what? Because I wasn't DMing you enough?
So why does everything happen when you miss one day of school? When I was in elementary school, there was this thing called Student of the Month. We'd have this big ceremony in the gym where they'd reward kids for being good students. And so much drama would kick in during these events. Kids would cry, others would get jealous, some fell asleep, and some actually fell. These were pretty much the Oscars of 2nd grade. This one time, it was the day of the ceremony, and I stayed home. Apparently, they called my name, and lucky me, I wasn't there. According to my friends, some other kid tried to snub the award from me by walking towards the stage, and teachers stopped him. And all the other kids were confused because they believed that that was the kid who earned the award. Hey yo, free my boy! Someone yelled. The next day I came to school. Teachers told me all of this, and they had the kid apologize to me. And I was so confused. He tried to pull a Kanye without me even being there. I never heard from that kid again. It's funny because if I didn't miss school, that would have never happened.
My now ex-best friend and I hung out almost every single day. We were super close. Let's call her Natalie. Natalie and I would sometimes get into drama, and her mom didn't like this. She considered me a bad influence on Natalie. But honestly, the drama was coming from both sides. Natalie and I had a group chat with one other person. One day, Natalie sends me a message through the group chat saying that she couldn't be my best friend anymore and that she's really sorry. She really didn't explain why though. I was crushed. She had been my best friend for so long. 3 weeks ago, I noticed that someone added me on Snapchat by search. I didn't really think too much about it. I added them back and we started having a conversation. She was a young girl my age and we started having conversations about boys we had crushes on, school, and lots of other things. I asked her to send me a picture of herself and she said she couldn't. That should have been the first red flag. Then we decided to meet up at the mall. I wait for her at the mall but she never shows up. Part 2 is up. I'm at the mall waiting for this girl to show up but she never does. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Like I said before, this girl told me she couldn't send me any pictures, so I didn't even know what she looked like. That's when I started suspecting something. We got along so well in our Snapchat conversations, it was almost too good to be true. So of course, I decide to call her. And guess who answers? Natalie, with her new friends who she knows that I hate. At that moment, I realized that she dumped me and then got with these new girls that she knew I hated. Of course, I was furious. I wanted to say something, but before I could, Natalie hung up the phone. And of course she did. She knew I was going to go off on her. Well, I start calling Natalie's phone several times, and she doesn't answer. Then I see that she unadded me off Snapchat and blocked me. So now I have no way of getting in contact with her. I spent weeks talking to this girl only to find out it was my ex-best friend catfishing me. So of course, I drive all the way to Natalie's house and her mom answers. Part 3 is up. So I show up to my ex-best friend's house who's been catfishing me for weeks. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Her mom was not happy to see me. Like I mentioned before, Natalie's mom thought I was a bad influence on her because we always got into drama. I proceed to tell Natalie's mom everything in detail. Her mom was shocked. She couldn't believe that her little daughter would be capable of such a thing. She was so mad, and it was so satisfying to me.
Let's talk about my homeroom teacher while I make cookies. Let's just call him Mr. Hagatha. Mr. Hagatha decided the moment I stepped into his classroom that he had major beef with me. I was the only kid in his class that wasn't failing all my classes, so he didn't like that apparently. It all starts with the seating chart. You probably don't know this about me, but I have crap vision, and I used to get bullied a lot for wearing my glasses, so I never wore them. So Mr. Hagatha knew this and decided to place me in the very back. Whenever he wrote stuff on the board, I would ask the person next to me to read the question, and he would yell at me for talking. I would then ask him if he could read it to me, but he responded saying, "You're being disruptive, figure it out." We also would have this period at the end of the day where we would catch up on work. Since I was all caught up, every kid in his class asked me to tutor them since he didn't. I agreed, but every time I helped someone, he would scream at me saying that he would give me detention for talking, even though he knew I was tutoring kids. On the other hand, these two girls would literally sit in the back of the classroom on their phones visibly, but when I told him this, he said that I needed to work quietly like them. Part 2 posted now. Also, he only called me by my nickname, which he knew I hated, and I asked him to stop repeatedly. Part 2 to drama with Mr. Hagatha. So one day, a kid threw a piece of paper at my head, and I threw it back because I didn't know what to do with it, and Mr. Hagatha saw this and made me sweep the entire floor after class, even after I explained that he threw it first. That same day, me and my friends were skipping down the hallway, and he only pulled me aside specifically and told me that I was getting detention for being distracting. I burst out into tears because I've never gotten detention, and after crying for 10 minutes, he finally said he would give me another chance. The last thing I'm going to talk about is when those girls who sat on the back of their classroom on their phones started bullying me. They called me a bloody tampon, whatever the heck that means, and I yelled at them because Mama raised me right. When he heard me yell, he straight up screamed at me when I told him what they were saying. He said I was lying. When I got home, my mom emailed him, and his response was, "Sorry, she tends to lie a lot." Like, sir, do I look like Pinocchio? Well, anyways, comment if you want more of these videos.